Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. So, I'm going to continue on the conversation we had last week about theurgy and ceremonial magic. And I want to start by giving you a deeper history of how all of that started for me. So, I knew of the topic of ceremonial magic and the grimoire from way back. And I had done some research on the topic, and I had looked at certain grimoire, and many of them felt unclean because a grimoire is a collection of basically magic recipes that includes how to do a spell, how to do a banishing, how to do a whole bunch of how to do. Some of them are more superior, others feels that they were more lower vibration kind of like rituals that were to be done. But it's based on the following principles. A theurgical or magical or ceremonial magic um, uh, um, uh, ritual, it's the science or art to cause change to occur in conformity to will. Now, the lower um, um, magic, lower ceremonial magic, it's to let it conform to your will, to the will of the magician. But in truth, in white magic or white ceremonial theurgy, it's to have it in the will of God. Now there are certain things that are involved in doing a ceremonial a magical ritual. Uh, the theurgy is the external expression or calling of a spiritual entity or deity, be it a dead soul, an angel, an elemental spirit, a, a demon, whatever it may be. It's the external, and that's called an evocation with an E, an evocation. It is the calling of a spirit in front of you, external to you, either as they appear sometime as a vision. Sometimes the vision can be flat, almost like looking at something in a screen or in a painting. Other time they will show up as a 3D manifestation. Typically speaking, the magician will create a circle or a ring past knot around which, in the center of which the evocation will occur, the calling will occur. Now, if you call a lower being, you have to banish the being after it's done. Otherwise, the place, particularly if it's a lower being, the place where you call the entity will be cursed at eternity because that entity will find a ground hole into this dimension and will haunt it and cause all kinds of chaos.
Mhm.
So you have to know how to do also a banishment. Now, these rituals usually tell you how to do it, although some grimoire are not complete and they don't tell you, and you do something, and then you find yourself caught in a quagmire and you don't know how to get out of it. Okay? So, uh, an, invocation is you trying to identify and becoming one with the spiritual entity. Like when you pray to God and you're asking God to merge with you, okay? That's an invocation. An evocation, it's you calling the name of a being and asking the being to physically manifest. Typically speaking, this is what theurgy is about. It's evocation. It's the physical manifestation of something on earth and to create a change, a transformation of some kind. Um, I have looked at many of the grimoires. Some of them, even when I try to touch the books, I would feel a sense of dread that I should not touch this book, that there's something that's not correct in the energy system or whatever is written down. I have a few of them still in my library, but the one that I know a lot of details about. It's what I showed you the last time, which is the book of sacred magic of Abraham and the Mage.
Mhm.
Okay, the story of this book is as follows. The first earliest copy of this, the man who wrote this book was in his 90s, and he had a young son, and he was about to die, and he knew his death was coming. And he was a magician, his name was Abraham, and he wanted to bequeath his son, his younger son, with this a way for him after he's gone to be able to operate this magic when he becomes of age. And he wrote down with great detail. It was written originally in German because he was talking about where he lives and the prince that he served. It was in Germany. Okay? This was around mid 1700, but the actual copy of this that exists, there are actually two copies that were found. One on which this translation is by MacGregor Matter from the Golden Dawn is based on, is in the Librairie de l'Arsenal de Paris. It's a library that has some antique books in it, and it's there, but it's written. It's not in German. It's in French, but it's archaic French. There's a lot of verb sentence. There's a lot of flow. It's ancient. Okay, so MacGregor Matter went into the library when he was in part of the Golden Dawn. He translated it, and he annotated it with footnotes, giving his opinions about what he was translating. The book itself, if you for a moment ignore MacGregor Matter's footnotes, the book itself is beautifully written as a loving father knowing his days are counted, leaving an inheritance for his son at some point to operate. So at a lot of the concern that the dad had, it's the ego of man that can corrupt how this book operates. And because if you fail to operate it in this lifetime, you cannot do it again. So there are lots of restrictions and lots of recommendations that he gave. For example, he told his son, after you read this, you need to, that's one of the things he said in there, you need to by hand copy the entire book again to make sure that there is a relationship between your inner brain and the knowledge that I'm trying to transmit to you. On another sheet of paper, you need to retranscribe the whole book. Word for word, copy everything to make sure that it enters and you understand it. Something that many people who try to operate this book have not done.
Did he copy it himself?
MacGregor Matter copied it because he translated it, but
Okay.
people after him, for example, Aleister Crowley, there are many other people who tried to do this,
Oh, okay.
not copied it.
Mhm.
Okay, and 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 thus it ended up being an issue and a problem because there was a reason why he was trying to do this, is to subdue the ego. There are certain things that matters, comments that he made. For example, one of the things that he said, so the way the ritual goes is that you spend whatever how many months it takes you to rewrite this book, and after you're done, you have to find, it could be external, it could create it outside in the outdoor, an altar, and it could be an outdoor but in a secluded area, or you could do it indoor. You have to find the right kind of size room and proportion, and there are instructions on what to look for. In addition, you have to create the altar. It has to be a certain size, blah blah blah, etc. And then you have to create certain kind of object. You have to take certain kind of ingredient to create a holy oil. You have to have an incense burner. You have to have regalia, a white linen cloth with certain kind of gold trimming, a cordeliers. You have to have a crown, a kind of a bandana that you have to put above your head. There are certain things you have to do, right? And then you have to have a staff, okay, the magician's staff. And that staff has to be made of the branch of an almond tree. So there are all of these, and I have seen many grimoires that have said the staff has to be done and you have to put crystal on it. He didn't ask for crystal, just a simple branch of an almond tree. That's it. The power was not coming from the crystal and the copper. There's a lot of people that say ornamented with copper wiring and doing. There was no such thing, because the real power comes from the first evocation, which is the calling of your own holy guardian angel. This is where the power comes to operate it. Okay? So during those months leading to it, there are certain kind of things, and he talks about, and for the first few months you can do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. If you're married for the last 3 months, I forgot 3 months or 4 months, whatever it is, no marital relation with your spouse. There are certain part of animals. Once it comes to, you basically become more and more vegan as you get closer and closer to the operation, meaning the first calling of the Holy Guardian Angel. In addition to that, he had asked, and you have to keep praying and do these incense burning on a daily basis. You have to go to the altar. There are certain things you have to do morning and night to lead into it, right? Because you're building something. You have to consecrate the environment, right? As you're doing this, and you have to burn a lot of incense, and you have to prepare a lot of it, and do the prayers, the invocations. And as you're doing this, and you have to have a small silver plate that is going to sit in the altar. And then he asked for the use of a child medium. It could be a boy or girl, doesn't matter, but that's about 5 years old. This is the part where Matters made a comment, you don't need the child medium, because if you're intuitive enough, you don't need it. And that's the mistake that a lot of people who try to operate this made, and therefore the angel never showed up. So as the first day, as you're getting ready to operate this, you actually do never look at the altar or look. You do deep prayer and meditation, and of course you're incensing the whole place. And at this moment, the entire chamber, room, or in front of, if it's outdoor, in front of the altar, become consecrated because of all the prayers that you've done for months leading to it. It's a year thing for you to leading to it. And as you actually bend down, you have this kind of black cloth, although you're dressed in white, black cloth over you so that you can't look and peer. And you beg and beseech and pray and ask with the purity of your heart for the Holy Guardian Angel to manifest physically into, so it's an evocation. You're speaking out loud and speaking in your heart, and you're asking for it to show up. Okay? And what happened is that the child should be in the room with you while this final operation is happening. And what will happen is that the innocence, and he said it in the book, it's the nature of angelic realm is a nature of innocence. And it's the child's innocence that will attract the angel, that will cause it to come down. Now, the reason why I know this is important, when I was part of the Martinist, it was the mystery school, we had in the mystery school what were called colognes. There were young girls that were virgin, that were 8 years old, that were the only individual that were allowed to pass to go into the Shekinah, which is where the light of God is. And their innocence was what brought in the power of God and the power of the Shekinah. This is very old sympathetic magic that attracts these kind of beings. So when the angel shows up, he says the angel will show up in the form of glory. there will be luminosity. There will be light that will show up. And when the light show up, do not raise your head. Continue to bow down, and the angel will leave an imprint, meaning on the silver plate that looks almost like a mirror, there will be a foggy handwriting, an angelic signature. It's a fog that will have a design in it. And you ask the child to bring you the plate. While your head is down, you note it down to imprint it in your head what that signature is. You don't look down. You don't look up. And then you withdraw with the child out of the room and you close the door. You don't go back and look. Then you go to sleep. And in your sleep, for the next few days, the angel will talk to you and will be with you. And then from that moment forward, when you go back into the chamber, you will see the angel. You can invoke it. At that moment, you are not using your staff. It's just you bowing down and prostrating yourself in front of the glory of God, beseeching the guardian angel to come to you. Now, the reason I'm saying this to you is because I want to explain to you how this angelic, the authority to wield the staff comes from this angel. That first operation is the key. The moment it happens, all the other parts can happen as well. Because after that, after the angel comes in, the angel will give you all kinds of note, all kinds of warning, will continue to talk to you for days to come to prepare you for the rest of the operation, in which you're going to call the entire lower realm, all of the prince of darkness, all of the lower realm. You will call all of them, asking them to obey you. Because a lot of the operation that you're supposed to do as a magician, a lot of them are not done by angels. Okay? They are done by lower beings, lower angelic forms. And therefore, you need first the authority of the light. And from the authority of the light, you can dominate the lower, and control the lower realm. Okay? Now, later on, and this is the gist of the operation. Later on, there was a French occultist, a great French occultist that I've known for many years, called Robert Ramblin. And he went back to the, although he did not read this book first to kind of compromise himself, bias himself in any way. So he went to the Librairie de l'Arsenal de Paris, and he then did his own version of the translation. His actually is better, because I read French as well. His is absolutely phenomenal. It's coming from such a pure place, because his ego is not in the way. It's not cerebral. It's not frontal lobe. It's not that his matters is wrong, but you can sense his intellectual interference in the footnotes. Whereas when you see Robert Ramblin's footnotes, it's in sync with what Abraham Melin was trying to say. So it's more like a hand in a glove. And by the way, Abraham Melin and Robert Ramblin, it's an acronym for the same thing. So it's kind of weird thing to kind of notice as well. So anyway, if you can find the French copy and you read French, it will actually serve you better, because it will be more, for me, because I read both. I read Matters first, and then I read Robert Ramblin. It was night and day. It was just like, when I read Robert Ramblin, I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. I had tears in my eyes. I was like, the way the father was talking to the son, and the way he, meaning Robert Ramblin, was supporting it with his footnote and saying this makes sense. Completely different from this book. All right. Anyways, I want you to understand that what Lord Melchizedek is guiding us into doing. And first of all, before I begin there, so in 2010, it was the beginning of 2010, January, Lord Melchizedek came to me and asked me to create an ascension wave. At the time, I wasn't sure what that meant, but I channeled it and I invited everybody for an ascension wave. And he said, I want a group of you to create what he said was a bore and opening into the heaven that would connect to a network of opening that already exists from the planetary level into the solar. These networks already exist from the solar into the galactic, from the galactic into the universal to multi-universal, and all the way back to God. So these networks exist, but how the network connects and drops into Earth is eroded. It's not that it's not accessible, but it's barely accessible. And he's asking for a group of us to collectively come together to become the bridge, literally he said, the beam and the structure, so that this opening can be created. Meaning a spiritual opening, not an actual open, but a spiritual opening, like a gateway, right? That we become the locking mechanism and the gate itself. And he uses term that we will become the engineers and the architect and the beam and the structure that will support this, right? So, and at the time I thought I knew what that meant, but I guarantee you I did not comprehend it, okay? And initially there was a lot of people that were interested. Around 2012, I did an event, December 12, 2012, I did an event here, and I'm telling you, for those of you who were there, I had people at my feet literally because there wasn't enough room for the amount of people that were in the space.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And it was like packed to the gills. And people kept on buzzing to come in, buzzing. I was so afraid that the next person to come in, I'm going to have them sit in the fire escape because there was no room. There was no room left. And out of all of these people, I have a few students who still remain, but all of them were coming because they wanted to be, for the most part, a priest or priestess of Melchizedek. And they wanted the glory and the power that this implies, biblically, or the law of what it is to connect to the energy of Melchizedek. But it was, they wanted the shiny things, the glory, the magic, the staff, the regalia, all of this. But none of them were willing to do what Melchizedek was asking us to do, which is do the real work. Because later on in the channeling, several years later, I think it was 2013, Lord Melchizedek said, I'm going to reinstitute the true order of Melchizedek on earth, because all of the previous attempts have failed because of men's ego. And that implies the amount of work that I've been guiding you, internal work, inner work, that I've been guiding you to do over the past umpteen years. That work is necessary in order for the shiny thing not to become an albatross, for it not to become a trap that corrupts the ego and pollutes the path that he's trying to create once more, because that was done over and over again. It's not that these people did not, the previous attempts were not successful in connected to the energy of Melchizedek. It's that men's ego corrupted it. So to avoid this, he kept on asking us to do all kinds of things, whether it was the Dentian work, okay? Examining our Dentian to figure out subconscious content and things that were out of whack into our pelvic and lower chakra area, whether they were sexually repressed stuff, whether they were power-related things, because the center of will, the solar plexus is the center of will, whether it is all kinds of suppress and repress internal conflict, trauma. We had to resolve all of these things. And then we started working in the torsion field for the past 2.5 years, non-stop, working on the torsion field. And I've shared with you in this venue multiple times how the torsion field mechanic is a gift that comes from the Guardian Alliance of Light, who are part of the Melchizedek Order, who are sharing with us the neutrality that they knew in their dimension, and as an act of love and generosity, projecting it into us, and in the first in the 4D, then in the 50, in the 60, all the way to the 12, to the 15th dimension, all the way back into the throne room of God, and piece by piece, torsion field by torsion field, as they nest on top of each other, they embedded on top of each other, rotating and counter-rotating. We are learning how to acclimate ourselves energetically to what they are creating, but more importantly, spiritually, to the gift that each one gives. Because initially I thought I knew what neutrality was, although I didn't know. Neutrality is new for me in this lifetime, because before that I had a sword in hand battling for the light. I thought if I just declare myself neutral, that was sufficient enough. But I've learned so much since then, that there is so much depth to what neutrality is. And being neutral doesn't mean that only the light will come to you. There are beings who are fallen, who are battle fatigued, who will then seek also neutrality, and they should be welcome, because if you're neutral, it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is for you to become uncharged, meaning you go into 0 point and you release the battle and choose accelerated conflict resolution so that you can find peace. So it was a big lesson for me to accept people who had other kind of background. And I shared that experience before in previous classes, where somebody came to me who was a completely different background, who was actually an incarnated aspect of a fallen angel. And I had to accept him. At first I panicked, because my former past life training, and you don't want to know what's the deepest thing? The Guardian revealed to me, this man is not only an incarnated aspect of that fallen angel that he tells you about, but in the past life you battled an angel. This is why he's in front of you. You need to learn how to reconcile with him. This is why when I asked the Guardian at the end of my communication with them about this man, when I asked them, so what do I do? They said, teach him everything. Don't hold anything back. Because my instinct was that I can't teach him anything, because he's a spy. He's going to take this and use it the wrong way. I have to protect the technology of the Guardian. The Guardian said, no, there's nothing to protect. Teach him everything. And more importantly, love him unconditionally. This is why every time this man was leaving, you were there, you saw it. Every time he was leaving, I would go and grab him and hug him and rock him. And he was always uncomfortable. But it wasn't him as a physical person. It's the soul that's in him that I had battled, that I was saying, I love you to. I was trying to tell that soul, I am no longer battling with you. I'm reconciled. These are things that expanded my understanding of what neutrality is. The reason I'm saying all of this to you is that in the process of not only doing the actual practice, the breath, and seeing the torsion field being created and the frequency, the vibration, you too have been changed in your understanding of what neutrality is. You've grown, you've expanded, and more importantly, the way we're doing it lately at every torsion field, and we will do the meditation to close, and as the torsion field, the vortex gets created, the first Guardian gets 4D, the second Guardian 5D, and what do? In every dimension, we are trying to remember our identity in each dimension. Slowly, gradually, We're acclimating our consciousness to claiming who we really are.
Mm.
We are Adam Kadmon, the original man. We are now a homo luminous being in verticality, in spiritual rectitude and verticality, going all the way back to God. We're claiming not just the staff, which is a representation of the Antakarana, of the entire rainbow bridge, of the entire chakra column, going from first chakra all the way to the God chakra, all the way up in the higher dimension. So the bridge that Lord Melchizedek had asked us to create, the opening, it's between the earth and the planetary level. In the process, I'm taking you to the torsion with the torsion field, Guardian lines, all that. It claims not only that connection, but it claims all of the other dimension above, all the way back to God. So when you finish the torsion field complete, the entire system is in rectitude on top of you.
Mm.
It's vertical on top of you. So if the staff of the magician represent is a physical manifestation of that verticality, the actual energetic and emotional expansion of knowing who I am. I remember who I am in the 12D. I remember who I am in the 15D. I remember you're claiming yourself in all dimension of time and space.
Mm.
You're remembering who you are all the way through. And when you do this, the Antakarana, the staff, is not necessary. The staff is for sure now. You don't need it anymore. Because now the authority that you need to actually demonstrate the staff is living in you.
Mm. That's beautiful, Pierre. Wow. That now it it always become clearer and clearer that the expression is nothing can be created or destroyed. We
Absolutely.
we are we are what we are, and
Above and so below, all of it is within you.
yes, wow.
Yes, 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 yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's a question of, again, understanding that that and many of you have already, I don't have to explain this to you because as you're doing the practice you know this already. As you're doing the torsion field 3 times a day, there are moments after you do it, it feels like you have a column. The energetic and the emotional is so merged that it's walking with you. Wherever you go, you can feel it walking with you. The staff is in you. That's the rod of Melchizedek. That's the rod of Melchizedek. It's his rod of power. And this is the shiny thing that people were seeking in 2010, 2011, 2012. And none of them were ready. And they were not willing to stick around and do the hard work to get there.
Mm.
It's their loss. But clearly they were not ready.
Mhm.
Because there was a lot of emotional growth that needed to happen, and spiritual growth, and psychic growth as well, that needed to happen for that kind of verticality to occur,
Mhm.
right? And um, now I had shared with you a couple of incidents, and I will mention 2 of them again that happened. One was when I was much younger. So now I try to operate this as well. I rewrote the whole thing down by hand as well.
Mm.
And when I was doing it, I realized Spirit guided me very quickly after I did this. You don't need to do this, Pierre. You've done this before. It's a
Mm.
waste of time. You're going back in time to try to operate this because you've done this before.
Mm.
And I knew this to be true for one simple thing that happened is that I shared this in the last class. When I was 18, almost turning 19, my mom became sick. We are from Haiti, and there were people in the building from back home as well who did something to my mother with voodoo, and she was sick. She was poisoned, and I didn't know how to help her. Uh, I'm a young man. I'm completely innocent. I had read this in French, and I went to the I was part of the mystery school at the time. I went to the temple and I asked God for help. That was on Sunday morning, and I got an insight that I should take my mother. I had a small room all the way to the back of the apartment. It was kind of a railroad apartment all the way to the back. Very narrow, 8 feet by maybe 12, 13 feet. Small single bed and nicely decorated. I painted the room. I did. There was one single window at the end. There was a table, 2 candles, an incense, and that was the place. For months now, for over a month since I entered the mystery school, every night I would go and sit there and meditate. And I would do the prayer, and with sincerity, with purpose, with innocence, I would pray. So I brought my mother to the room after I returned home, telling her, God is telling me to do this for you. She went willingly. I remember taking water, and I blessed the water and charged it, meaning I asked for prana, the vital life force of God, to be poured into this water. Mm-hmm. It's the similar ritual I learned later on in theurgical practice of the Eucharist, where you transform a common object into a holy object, like the body of Christ. The bread becomes the body, and the blood becomes the wine becomes the blood of Christ. I didn't know it at the time because I had no knowledge with this. All of this came to me not because I had the whole map that was given to me. I only knew when I left the temple that I was supposed to take my mother into a room. After I got my mom into a room, I was told, do this next. And I went, and I obeyed. I just did it. Do this next. I obeyed. Like that. I didn't have a map. I just went as I was being told to do, piece by piece. So what it led to in the end is that I put my hand on the back of my mom where the problems, the blisters were, and then I put her to bed and I told her to breathe with me because I was doing all these breathing exercise. And we're doing the breathing together, and then I instinctively kneeled down and prostrated myself on the floor. Similarly to what was happening in this book. I prostrated myself completely in the ground and I asked, help me with my mother. I don't know what I'm doing. God help me. And then poof, I shot out of my body. I mean like shot. Like a rocket. I went outside of my body. And I found myself above the planet floating. I could see the moon, I could see stars, and then this light approached me. And this light enveloped me. And then I said, help me with my mother. And then the light slammed me back down. Like slam. Now, I have to tell you that when the energy slammed me back down and I literally violently connected to my body, these 3 things happened simultaneously. I slammed down, the window was partly open, and there was a shade that was partly pulled. There was no light in the room except for the 2 candles. The shade snapped, and fell down. And then light. The light felt like it came from the outside, and the whole room was filled with light. And then my whole body began to violently shake internally, as if somebody had a jackhammer and was pumping me with energy. Like that, very violently. And my mother felt the same thing because she started screaming because she was feeling the same thing. At that point, my other siblings that were to the front of the apartment, because it was railroad, ran from the living room and came back What's going on? And then when they opened the door, the light disappeared. I was still shaking for an hour and change. So was my mother. My body was still trembling and shaking. I didn't shake per se. People would see me normal. But inside of me, the same vibration, violent, like that. So I didn't know what actually happened. It was curiosity, blah, blah, blah. The next Sunday when I went to the temple and I asked an elder brother, and he said to me, was the window open? I said, yes. He said, you're lucky you left the window open. Because you have to understand, angelic forces exist in other dimension in time and space. And the rules that operates them, the atmospheric pressure that they exist in is so different than that of a world, that when they need to enter into a place, okay, if everything is sealed, they will break something to come in because you evoked it with your purity of your heart. And this is where this book, I know this book is correct. The purity of your heart, the sincerity with which you called it and it will break in to help you fulfill what you need to fulfill. Right? And I can confirm this because a year later, again inside the temple as well, we have a French occult order that was the inner circle of the mystery school. And we have a ceremony that's done in December. This is the following year. That's called the dedication ceremony. It's a Yeshua ceremony. It's where, in that particular order, the evocation of the Christ, theurgically, was actually manifested quite often. And in fact, it was around the time of Marie Antoinette when this was being done in France. And for the brothers and the sisters that were part of the order, because it was both male and female, in the salon that existed around the time in France, instead of calling it the Christ, they used to call it term la chose, the thing. The reason being, it's because the Inquisition, they could have been killed. So it was a code name. They call it la chose in their writing and their correspondence. They would call it la chose, so that people will not know what they were talking about. The thing, right? So the ceremony, so there was an unknown master who they are elected every year, and that person has the staff, and for the entire year they're preparing themselves for the ceremony. And what happened is that we all hold hands, all of the other participants hold hands in the temple, and then this guy is in the center. So we are creating the ring pass knot to allow this man with the staff to call Yeshua, which is the mystical name of God, of Jesus. And when he called it with the staff and he struck it down, he's supposed now to wait for the energy to come in. And the energy came in. But he was not prepared to hold it. And I know what happened to him because this is what happened to me. His whole body began to shake and convulse. And it became so strong that he started foaming at the mouth like he was having an epileptic attack. He was not prepared because for you to be able to hold that energy, you have to be righteous. You have to be clean. Your diet has to be a certain way. Your intimacy issue. There are certain things you have to do. Mm-hmm. And we had to stop the entire ritual and call an ambulance to come pick him up because he was literally convulsing. And the reason I'm mentioning this is to talk about the striking of the rod, the externalization. Now you can internally connect. You're not going to have that kind of physical experience. When we connect to the torsion field and we go all the way back to the throne room of God, and we are standing in that rectitude and verticality, and we are all aligned to the rod of Melchizedek, we have deep connection and we have insights and all that, but it doesn't show up at this as this vibrationally violent kind of like experience. In this instance, it's different because you're evoking them, you're dislodging them from where they are, and we are asking them to manifest on earth. Right? So when a magician strikes their staff, it's Hakma, the second Sephiroth. It's a line. But in the universe, there is no straight line because everything is in the torsion field. So the line that you strike is a circle. This is why in all the grimoire, when you're evoking a spiritual energy, you create a circle with a divine name of God to limit the atmospheric thing that they can do to that circle. You're creating a volume inside of which they can manifest. Because you don't want the whole place to start shaking. Now, if it's a good spirit, an angel, they are very, although I was shaking quite a bit, but I was prepared, I was innocent, I was simple. At the time, I was like basically righteous because of my innocence. It shook me, it lasted for a few hours, and after that I was fine. It's not that I couldn't walk, I was able to walk. But this man fell and went into literally foaming at the mouth. They had to pick him up. He was screaming and convulsing. He had to be taken out. So the key to this is to understand that the staff or the expression, particularly with the way I'm going to show you now to do the begone time and space, when you say, and this is where the Melchizedek teachings are coming in to try to illuminate us into a higher form of this. This is the shiny stuff that the people, if they had stayed, they could have learned right now, which is the following. The verticality that you know when you're doing the torsion field, where you're now claiming yourself, understanding, remembering who you are, all the way back into the throne room of God, from where you are in 3D, all the way back. That verticality, you're going to express it outside of you. When we do a remote healing for somebody, Jane Doe, and we call Jane Doe, after we do the torsion field, around us, we sense, for example, Jane Doe is here. Wherever Jane Doe is here. And I then can project my Antakarana on top of Jane Doe. And let the peace and the serenity that I know pass on to you. Okay? That's one way of doing the healing. Let the peace, my eyes are closed, I can sense energetically it's here, and I project it. May the peace and the serenity that I know pass, or the neutrality that I know pass on to you. Now, when I'm doing this for somebody, whether they're on the phone with me or they're energetically somewhere else, the moment I do this and I sense my entire column move and go where I sense them energetically, if they're on the phone with me, all of a sudden they go, oh my God, whatever distress that they're in, it's removed. Automatically, it's removed. You're basically going to do the same thing, except this time you're going to look in space around you. And typically I'm teaching you how to do this because the world is in distress. We have to step up. This is what we agree upon when we incarnated here. We have to step up and help the rest of humanity. There are moments that you're going to see catastrophic things happening so quickly, there will be no time for you to close your eyes and to do all the things that you're supposed to do. You need to access and project that very quickly, within minutes. For example, a storm is coming, or you see there is a panic on a crowd, and you're trying to make sure that they remain at peace and they evacuate very calmly. Or you sense a storm coming and you're trying to create protection around a certain environment or home. Okay? And this is what this technique is about. It's the same mechanic when you say, may the peace and the serenity that I know pass on to you, and you see the column move from you, the verticality that you're sensing inside of you. Basically, you enter into quantum entanglement with the other person, or where you're trying to project it. It's quantum entanglement. But in spiritual, in theurgy, what you're doing is that the column that you're passing, it's a measure of God. You're striking the staff and saying, this is the change that I want to occur in conformity now to the peace and the serenity that I know. That's the change that I'm trying to create, because I'm now entangled with you. Right? So let's say I'm going to project it into a space in front of me. You have to visually also, energetically, I already know where my Antakarana, where the entire verticality exists. Everything's aligned inside of me. And with my hand, I'm going to say these things. Be gone, time and space. I'm banishing in the direction that I'm going to be looking at all the time, space, condition, rule, physics that exists in that environment. I'm banishing it. Be gone, time and space. And when that finished, I extend my hand out, I push it right out there. When I say be gone, time and space, I'm verbally saying it loud, and I'm now seeing as I do when I say, may the peace and the serenity that I know pass on to you, and the pass on, it move. When I say be gone, time and space, I extend my hand and I see my entire column move into that space. I'm now entangled with the space that I'm staring at. And my eyes are fixed, and in my inner vision, I can see the whole column in the middle of the room. And then my eyes are open. Now I ask the guardian silently to come in and reconfirm and recreate the geometry around that space. And I usually follow it with my breath, because I'm witnessing it, and as the first guardian come in, I inhale. And the second guardian, and the third guardian, until the entire construct is created. Now, if there are people around you when you're doing this, because now I have the authority, whereas before when you're doing this ritual, the angel, as you call it, will consecrate the staff and give you the authority. You have been working for almost 2 years on getting the authority, because you're familiarizing yourself with the entire Antakarana column. And it's not just the authority on earth, it's the authority in all dimensions of time and space. It's all the way back to God. You are now claiming who you are, your identity in every dimension. You're claiming, I remember who I am in the 4D. I remember who I am in the 50. I remember my identity in the 60. I remember everything. And because I remember all of this, I can project it. I can become entangled with the external space. Once all of it is created, and if there are other people in the room with you, they will sense it, because every molecule within the volume that you're seeing now, because now it's manifesting not internally, but in a form of glory. The energy is manifesting physically now. Every atom, every molecule within where the torsion field is getting created, over the home, over the crowd, over wherever it is that you're creating it, all of it will change, will transform. And people around you will know it. And they will, what are you doing? What? I could feel that. What's happening? What's happening? This is the shiny thing to demonstrate power that these people wanted in 2010. I personally tend not to do this in front of people because I don't want people to follow me like the pipe popper because they think they think that I know, they think that I have power, because it's going to be a trap for my ego. Because if people keep telling you have power, after a while you're going to believe you have power. I've said this to you before. Every time telling me you have power, I don't have any powers. God has power, not I. I've done that in the past, believing that I was God, I was omnipotent, and that was a trapping. I had to reincarnate to start from scratch. I'm not going to let that become a trap for me in this lifetime again. So when I see, when I do this, I would project it out, and again, as I said, I try not to do this in front of people unless I can help it. If it's us intimately working together, I can do it in front of you because you understand, all that stuff. You've been with me for years, you understand. But I don't want to do this in front of a crowd that I don't know, because I don't want them to begin to, particularly when they energetically, all of a sudden, the pain and the suffering that they have, neutrality is on top of them, physically manifesting, and more importantly, some of them would start beginning to shake. Because the neutrality will enter them. Whatever it is was out of alignment will be taken out. This is the kind of practice that it's break in case of emergency. The other thing I should tell you, and this is an important, extremely important warning. When you finish doing this, you put in a request in the blessed field at that moment. Bring peace to this individual. Protect this house. Whatever it is that you're trying to do that's going to be beneficial for humanity. It cannot be a selfish thing. It has to be righteous, and it has to be protective. But what you're doing and what you cannot do, and this is going to be that's the challenge. It's going to be a big challenge for all of us, because we were trained by the church to become martyrs. You cannot take planetary karma, you cannot take other people's karma while you're doing this. If you do this, it's going to hurt you so bad. And not only in this lifetime, but in multiple lifetimes to come. What we are going to do Wesak on Sunday, and we're going to do similar things during the Wesak next Sunday. That what we're going to ask is for a softer landing of the planetary karma. Now, everything in the quantum field, in the blessed field, exists in multiple versions. There are endless possibilities. We are experiencing one very specific possibility right now that's moving fast, that seems very rough and difficult. We're going to pray to God and ask God for an exception to allow the landing to be softer, for the lesson to be learned faster, so that the suffering, the difficulty, the struggle will lessen. That's all we can ask, but we cannot remove the karma. We cannot say to God, be gone. You don't have that kind of power. Yes, you're connected to the blessed field. You have omnipotence, a potential omnipotence behind you, but you don't control the power. It's God's will, not your will. To have that kind of hubris to think that you can control it is a recipe for catastrophic failure. It may make you if you're really trying to do it that way, it may make you so sick that you will leave the planet. So you need to be very careful that you're not trying to absorb other people's karma, that you're not trying to grow for other people, you're not trying to change. No one can change anyone. You can only demonstrate the peace and the change that you're trying to instill in others. You can only demonstrate it. Hopefully they will learn from you. Or you can entrain them into a vibrational frequency. And hope as well that that entrainment will begin to demonstrate to them that they have access to the same thing within themselves. And the entrainment happened through entanglement. Because I'm in that higher frequency, I can connect to you with your permission and shift you by projecting my own verticality, my own homoluminous connection to God into you, my own antakarana into you. And the moment it's projected, you will feel energetic. Sometimes people, when you do the projection, people don't understand what they're feeling. They feel better. They don't understand it completely, and they don't need to understand it. But if you do this enough, and so for some people it's only one time you need to do it, then they will begin to try to seek it. What did you do? What did you do? Because I felt so much better. Show me what you did. Don't, tell me what you did, because I want to do it too. It's difficult to, and that part about the karma is the greatest trapping and of all. Because once you begin to demonstrate this a few times, you will, it's easy for you to begin to believe erroneously in your own power and your own omnipotence. To think that I can project this and I can create a change. To think that people around me can see immediately, immediate change that I can create, because it creates an immediate effect. I've cleared a lot of spaces that were polluted with all kinds of things. I've shared with you before that retreat centers, healing centers are typically extremely unsanitized, because other healers have preceded you. They went in there, they did all kind of work and all kinds of things detached from people. But the people, the staff of these places, they make it swept, clean, smelling good and everything else, but energetically they don't clean it. Or if they do it once a day. Literally, if you're renting a room to do healing on people, every time you go in, this is why I do the torsion field anywhere I go. Because every time I start doing something, I want to make sure the room is clean. It's sanitized. If you are in an operating room, every time somebody walks out, there's a whole staff, all staff that goes in and sanitize everything. All the instrument, the wall, everything is sanitized. It's the same principle with energy. And I've gone many places like that where I would walk in and there was no area that was positive. And with that principle, in less than 2 minutes, I cleared the huge space. I just clear it out. If I was to do it individually in every corner, every object, every statue, it would take me an extremely long time to do. And sometimes I don't have the long time. I go in the center of the space, I project it, and the measure of God is created, the volume is created, and it clears the whole thing. Everything in that volume becomes neutral. Therefore, no negative pockets. I know I'm saying a lot, and for many of you, this is a lot new knowledge. It's a lot of information that you need to unpack. You need to slowly pick each morsel and try to swallow it before you can demonstrate. And the authority you already have for the amount of work that you've done with the torsion field so far, the staff is already blessed by the guardian angel. It's in you. It's living in you. It's already blessed. You have the authority already. But now you need to understand that you have the authority. You need to accept that you have the authority. And you need to demonstrate that you have the authority. It's going to take a minute. The same way the concept of neutrality grew over time, this also has to grow. I will continue to share more and more information because I could talk about this for a long time. I will share more and more to allow for you to become more and more familiar with what that means for you. And at some point, you will begin to accept, because it's a lot of responsibility on your part. What if I project this out and I wish for the wrong thing? What would happen? There are lots of things in your mind that you have to process and accept. If your heart is pure, by the way, and you're doing this for the right reason, you cannot project into this anything negative. Because what the holy guardian angel and God is watching, it's your heart. It's the purity of your heart. That's the power. It's not your ego and your hubris, it's the purity of your heart. And the certainty, and this is the part that's the key. This is why I said to you, you already have the authority. It's the certainty that you're capable of doing this. And that certainty comes from over 2 years of practice of doing this. The guardian know you are, you know they are. You've been doing this for too long. You are acclimating yourself. You have now accepted your identity in all these dimensions. There should be no doubts that you're capable of doing this. I'm saying this to you right now because I don't have the doubt, but you need to internally grow into that certainty if you're not completely there. You know what I'm saying? It's something that has to evolve inside of you. Any comments, any questions?
Well, i- if if um if someone is asking you after they get some relief, what did you do? How much can you share with them?
They're not going to understand what you're saying.
Okay, okay, okay.
They're not going to understand it.
Mm.
Plus, they're not going to accept it.
Right, okay.
Just tell them you ask God for help.
Help.
And God
Okay.
came in, or the angels came in and gave you
Yeah.
some. That's it.
Okay.
That, that's
Okay.
gonna, that's gonna know. They're not gonna understand all the details. I had known this since 2010, and I tried to explain it to many people that were around me around that time. They did not understand what I was saying. To me, it felt so simple. And by the way, that knowledge came to me all at once.
Mhm.
I needed to clear a space, and my body just knew what to do. This is why when I was trying to operate this, Spirit kept saying to me, "You've done this before." And it's true. I knew this in my bone how to do it.
Mhm.
Trying to explain this to somebody who doesn't have any connection with that verticality, that it's a measure of God and you have to project it outside, they're not going to get it. You will spend months and, in this instance, years trying to explain this to people until they lost interest and they walked away. They're like, "You're BSing me. You don't want to teach this to me.
Mhm.
Or you're not connected to that energy. You're lying. Let me go after somebody that's going to give me some shiny thing." Any other questions or comments? All right, let's take a 5 minute break and then we'll do the closing meditation. 5 minutes. take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Let your mind and your heart sync with each other. And notice what you notice. And the guardian alliance of light approached you, offering to gift you their shields of light and protection and a band of neutrality. If you are ready to accept this gift at this time, answer affirmatively. And let the gift of the first guardian begin in the core of the earth, counter-rotating, passing through the bottom of your feet, moving through your core, exiting outside of your head, and going into the top of the fourth-dimensional body, while creating all around you a thousand feet of neutrality. I remember who I am in the fourth dimension. The axis at the top of my head extends and it attracts now the energy of the fifth guardian, or the second guardian rather, coming down from source, rotating clockwise, and dropping into the top of the fifth dimensional body, moving through the top of my head, passing and descending into my core, exiting at the bottom of my feet, and going into the core of the earth while creating all around me. The Torsion field of neutrality. The axis at the bottom of my feet extends, and it attracts now the energy of the third guardian, counter-rotating, coming in from the core of the earth, moving through the bottom of my feet, passing through my core, exiting outside of my head, and going into the top of the sixth dimensional body, and creating all around me the torsion field of neutrality. The axis at the top of my head extends, and it attracts now the energy of the fourth guardian, coming in from source, rotating clockwise, passing into the top of the seventh dimensional body, moving now in the top of my head, descending down my chakra column, exiting at the bottom of my feet, and going into the core of the earth as it creates all around me. The torsion field of neutrality. I remember myself in the seventh dimension. The axis at the bottom of my feet extends, and it attracts now the energy of the fifth guardian, coming in from the core of the earth, counter-rotating, moving through the bottom of my feet, passing through my core, exiting outside of my head and going into the top of the eighth dimensional body while creating all around me the torsion field of neutrality. I remember my identity in the eighth dimension. The axis at the top of my head extends and it attracts now the energy of the sixth guardian, coming in from the core of the earth, rotating clockwise, dropping into the top of the ninth dimensional body, passing into the top of my head, moving through my core, exiting at the bottom of my feet, and going into the core of the earth while creating all around me. The torsion field of neutrality. The axis at the bottom of my feet extends and it attracts now the energy of the seventh guardian, coming in from the core of the earth, counter-rotating, moving through the bottom of my feet, ascending through my core, exiting outside of my head, and going into the top of the 10th dimensional body while creating all around me the torsion field of neutrality. I know who I am in the 10th dimension. The axis at the top of my head extends and it attracts down the energy of the 8th guardian, coming in from source, cascading down into the top of the 11th dimensional body while rotating clockwise, passing through the top of my head, descending down my chakra column, exiting at the bottom of my feet, and going into the core of the earth while creating all around me the torsion field of neutrality. The axis at the bottom of my feet extends and it attracts out the energy of the ninth guardian, coming in from the core of the earth, counter-rotating, moving through the bottom of my feet, passing through my core, exiting outside of my head, and going into the top of the 12th dimensional body, while creating all around me. A torsion field of neutrality. I remember who I am in the 12th dimension. The axis at the top of my head extends and it attracts now the energy of the 10th guardian, coming in from source, rotating clockwise, dropping down into the top of the 13th dimensional body, passing into the top of my head, moving and down into my core, exiting at the bottom of my feet, and going into the core of the earth while creating all around me a torsion field of neutrality. I remember my identity in the 13th dimension. The axis at the bottom of my feet extends and it attracts now the energy of the 11th guardian, coming in from the core of the earth, counter-rotating, passing through the bottom of my feet, moving through my core, exiting outside of my head, and going into the top of the 14th dimensional body, I remember who I am in the 14th dimension. The axis at the top of my head extends and it attracts down the energy of the 12th guardian coming in from souls, rotating clockwise, dropping into the top of the 15-dimensional body, passing into the top of my head, moving through my core, exiting at the bottom of my feet, and going into the core of the earth while creating all around me a total field of neutrality. I remember everything. I am everything. Father, mother, creator, created. I am that I am. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Any last comments before we close?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I want to thank all of you for listening tonight, and thank you for listening to us on Patreon. Like and subscribe to this video, and I'll talk to you. Oh no, we're gonna be off next week because we're celebrating Wesak all day on Sunday next week. So I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone. Blessings.
Thank you.